How was it on your end?
It's all good. It's that lag.
Okay.
It's that lag, bro. three claps, we got to get it. I got backup audio. Levels are good. Recording. Whew, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. What's up, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of Small Talk Bigger Ideas. And on this podcast, I talk with fellow creatives and see what's happening in their creative world. And we just chit chat and we have small talk, and we hopefully come up with some bigger ideas to motivate you with your creative passion. Today's guest, and the very first guest on the podcast, is none other than Shawn Brooks. And funny thing is, we actually recorded this already, but I ran into some technical issues, so we're having to redo it over. But nonetheless, we're here, we're doing it. So hello, Shawn. Thank you for being susceptible to come back on. You're a very busy man. You could tell everyone about that, but I appreciate you coming back on, man.
Hey, no, dude, seriously, man. Thank you for having me back again. I had so much fun with you the last time we talked about this. And I expect nothing, you know, saying nothing different. But for those who are, you know, this is the first one, so you're new to this, right? So my name is Shawn Brooks.
Right.
I am a film director, well, a filmmaker based here in Chicago. I run a business called Brooks Media, LLC, and I'm also one of the DPs for the Obama Foundation. I did a couple of projects with them, and, you know, I love to film shit.
Right on, right on. Sounds good. Shawn is a very experienced videographer / filmmaker. Me, myself, I'm just getting back into it. I don't consider myself being a videographer just by doing YouTube videos, but I'm trying to get back into it in the form of weddings, which Shawn also does as well, and then some personal projects I have going on. But today on this episode, we're just talking about cameras, because for the simple fact that 2020, mid 2020 has brought us a lot of new camera releases, and myself included. I'm rocking the X-T4 right now, which I actually just sold. Shawn is not too happy because he's an X-T4 owner, and he loves, let me tell you, he loves his camera. I think I can't say it's a bromance, but it's definitely a camera romance with Shawn and the X-T4. Even after, I'm gonna throw you under the bus here for a second. Even after he called Fuji out on Twitter, which was hilarious.
Yeah.
But yes, X-T4, I have it in my possession right now. I've used it. Don't get me wrong. I like the X-T4, but to put it plain and simple, I think I'm a bit of a camera whore. I really do. It's like I can never be satisfied with what I have. Before this, I had the EOS R. Before that, I had the Sony A7 III. And lo and behold, in 2020, I'm still thinking about getting an A7 III. Am I an idiot or what?
You know, okay, so a couple things there, Neil. Let me say this. No matter what camera company that I'm with, I don't care how much I love you. If some shit that you're doing is stupid, or I found it's just like illogical, I'm gonna call you out on it, right? Because as a person who buys your product, I want the best product that my money can buy. And if there are simple things that I feel that as a consumer I can call out for you, then I will do that. It's the same thing with Panasonic, and everybody knows I love my GH5. It's what I'm recording on right now, right? So I love my GH5, but you know, there are things that I call Panasonic out several times for the autofocus, several times. And the fact that they brought out DFD again in 2020, even for a vlogging camera, you know, that's a whole nother story. But yes, with all the flaws that I have with the X-T4, there are some major critical flaws with this camera, right? But coming from the GH5, there are just a lot of things about this camera that I just really appreciate. And what's crazy is, it's not always the big things, it's the small things sometimes. So, but in regards to you being a camera whore, I would say this, man. You know, the way I typically buy cameras is like, it has to fundamentally change the way I do something. So if the cameras you're buying aren't fundamentally the way you do something each and every time you buy one, then you probably, in my opinion, you should stick with whatever you have. Like, you know, you and I were just talking about this off air a little bit about the Fuji X-T4, and you know that you're selling it. And for the camera that you're contemplating on getting now, I'm just like, well, you might as well just kept your X-T4. So, but I am curious, all right? So for those who don't know, like, can you just tell the people why you are selling the X-T4 in the first place?
Man, mainly it's because, and I'm trying, well, and I'm not going to blame the X-T4 because of the simple fact that I have an adapted lens, but right now I just had to switch to manual. So I hope that my portion of the video is not out of focus. My eyes are red, my beard's red, so hopefully not. Anyways, I have a Sigma to 18 to 35 adapted with a Fringer adapter.
Okay.
And the autofocus doesn't work half the time. And I understand it's not native glass, but when an adapter costs $250 and I know the lens is capable, unless it's a faulty lens, that worries me because I should be able to adapt my glass. A lot of people have EF glass that they'd like to adapt to certain bodies.
True. Won't argue that.
Nonetheless, I thought about going the Viltrox route with their 23, 33, and their 56 coming out, but they don't have a zoom, and I like that focal range of like a 24 to 70. And Fuji has a 16 to 55 and a 16 to 80, blah, blah, blah. I just can't, I don't know. It's just something, and I should have thought about this. It's really stupid that I didn't think about this beforehand. I have a hard time spending $1,200 on Fuji glass, and that's for the 16 to 55. And I'm not hating on Fuji. Yeah, it's $1,200.
Hey, bro, listen. I think we talked about this before.
And I know you said it's a good piece of glass.
Not even that. I wouldn't pay $1,200 for that either. I paid $700 for mine.
Well, yeah, used. But see, here's my issue. It's like when I have the opportunity, finance-wise, to do something, those deals are seemingly like never around. You know what I mean? And it's like you got to strike when you can, and if you can't, then you kind of lose out.
Oh, yes, sir. Talk about that. That's real. That's real.
So, not that I don't like Fuji, and I think my problem is the adapted lens, but I see a lot of people rocking the 18 to 35 with no issues and this adapter. I downloaded the latest firmware update for both the lens and the adapter, and of course my Fuji has the latest firmware update, so I don't know what the problem is. Anyways.
Did you tweak the settings at all?
Weddings. Yeah, the tracking sensitivity, the AF speed, all that stuff. I looked at the video that you told me about.
Philip Bloom?
Philip Bloom. And I've messed around with it, and sometimes it locks on like a champ, and then other times, you know, it's so bad that it will actually, now it says it's still recording, sometimes it will stop the record or lock the camera up and I have to pull the battery. So I really think it's an adapter problem. It's not communicating with the lens and the body, and it's messing up.
I wish, Neil, that before you sold your X-T4, you would have gave it a fair chance with a native lens. And with that native lens being the 16-55. Like, so, dude, like, honestly, man, like, this is the first, I think I told you this before. Now, I have a same equivalent focal length on my GH5. This is what we're shooting on right now, right? The 12-35, which is the equivalent of a 24-70. But technically, the 16 to 55 is the 24 to 82.5 equivalent, right? So you're like a little bit more. But this is the first lens I've ever owned, honestly, that I don't need another lens with. Like, I don't need any other lenses for the jobs that I do. It literally covers every single focal length that I needed to cover. As far as like the shallow depth of field look, I am looking to get that new Viltrox 23mm f1.4, but it's not like, it's not a necessity for me, right? Because even when I wanted to get that, like, honestly, the 16-55 gives me enough depth of field for the look that I'm going for. Like, it's just enough. I don't really need the tone, all right? I don't need my background.
Tony.
I don't need it that. I don't need it like that. That's just and it's like, you know, your perspective. So for the lens that I have right now, man, honestly, if anybody bought a Fuji X-T4, I guarantee them that 16-55 lens would be the only lens that they really need. If you're a vlogger, I did order the 10-24. I'm just waiting on Adorama to ship me that one. But you know, yeah, dude, like that 16-55 is a monster. Like,
well, you know, the beautiful thing about it is I can always buy another one, I guess.
True.
But you know, here's my thought process, and me and Shawn were talking about this off the air. I was considering getting an S1, and if you guys have seen my previous video, my vlog 2.0 episode 1, I was talking about the S1 and somewhat of the S1H because my friend has them both. And I've thought long and hard on it, and right now I'm doing a bunch of weddings. I actually have several weddings until the end of the year, and as you know, especially if you're a one-man band, it's run and gun. You're all over the place. So while I think the image quality is good on the S1 and it's full frame, and it's essentially what an X-T4 would be if it was full frame, because it has kind of all the same specs pretty much. The autofocus is what's lacking. But like I was telling Shawn, I think as an inspiring, because I don't consider myself one, filmmaker, you have to practice the number one thing, I think, with filmmaking, and that's pulling focus on your subjects or on your scene. Obviously, composition is really important too. So I'm sitting here telling Shawn, you know, do I sit there and, if I'm going to make an upgrade, I think it is an upgrade. And maybe somewhere down the road, Panasonic will do something with their firmware that will allow their, he's saying no, that will allow their lenses to be more compatible, because I want to get the Sigma 24-70. And the Panasonic S Pro lens is great. It focuses way better. It's not Sony's focus, it's not Canon's focus, but it also costs $1,200 more than the Sigma. And we're talking about budgets. We got to stay within our, you know, financial budgets. So then me and Shawn wrapped around to, well, man, Sony a7 III is dated, but it's still a dope camera, and I can get the 24-70 Sigma, and I'm not basing this all around glass. But if Daniel Schiffer, if let's see, who else uses the a7 III?
Multiple, like a lot of Brandon Lee. Brandon Lee is another fantastic filmmaker.
Yeah, Sam Calder, I think, does, and sometimes he uses Canon. Terry Warfield, a lot of people. So it's not a scrub camera by any means. And I get the lens that I want. And I know people like, well, you're just getting the lens you want, getting the lens you want. Yeah, but the lens is what you invest in. The glass is going to last you for a very long time, more so than the body. And then when I step up to being a big boy, I can get the A7S III and still keep the A7 II as a B cam. And it does photography as well. I've stopped photography. I'm concentrating on filmmaking, but at least I will have that. Anyways, that's enough about me and my camera debacle. And I'm telling you this, giving you some context, because you may be someone that's never satisfied, or you have fear of missing out. You got to have the new. Well, the S1's not the new. The A7 III's not the new. And I won't even talk about the other camera that I just told Shawn about, which is the Z Cam. Let's just stick to the prosumer type of cameras, not the cinema stuff. So, having said that, for my workflow right now, this may be stupid, bro. And you said it would be a downgrade. And you're right. You're absolutely right. I still think, though, because I'm looking at the future, but I'm also looking at how functional it will be for me right now, and I can get one for like $1,500, A7 III.
Right. So.
And it's still a good camera, and you use it, right? You do weddings and doc work and corporate work.
Out the gate, I love the A7 III. I don't think it is a bad investment at all. Are there cameras that I feel are better than that camera? Yeah, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can, honestly, man, I would even argue that my GH5, besides the low light and autofocus, I would, you know, I will put it against an A7 III easily. You know what I mean? To be honest. Yeah. The A7 III is a fantastic camera. It's just that, like, you know, I'm thinking of from a workflow standpoint. Like, for me, it's like, since I started out in 10-bit, I can't do anything other than 10-bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Damn it.
Now.
Damn it. I forgot it don't have 10-bit.
Right.
Oh, no.
Now, I'm not saying that you can't make 8-bit work. I'm not saying that 8-bit 422 is not gradable. You know, I've done videos where you can't even really tell the difference between 8-bit and 10-bit. Like, if you look at an image, you're not going to be like... Especially online, right? Due to compression.
Yeah.
But from a workflow standpoint, especially somebody who's getting more into the grading, right? You've seen my node tree on DaVinci Resolve. Like, I love to have that flexibility where I can just move and just do stuff and just be free with it, right? So the fact that I literally have 10-bit in every single mode on my Fuji X-T4 versus my GH5. Now, my GH5 had 10-bit in every mode, 422 10-bit on top of that, just not in 4K 60. But now I have that in the X-T4, and it's just like, yo, bro, I'm not, with everything that I go through with that camera, Neil, and I don't know if you watched my Fuji X-T4 first impressions of that camera yet, but with everything,
no, not yet.
okay,
I will.
I just literally just dropped it today, so if you didn't see it, it's okay.
Oh, okay.
But for everything that I've been through with this camera, that I do with this camera, it checks so many boxes, and one of those boxes, which is I find funny because it's the complete opposite for you, right? One of those boxes that it checks for me is the autofocus. Like, dude, I did not know how much, as a one-man band, how much autofocus can greatly impact what you do. Dude, there are certain shots that I just cannot get with my GH5 because I didn't have autofocus. It's just, it is what it is. You know, manual focus works, but at a time where gimbals are so prevalent now, right? On a gimbal, you want something where you can just point it with the gimbal, it's gonna catch focus.
Right.
Not the same with the GH5.
And that's the thing too. Like for weddings especially, there are certain shots, because I don't have the steady hands, that I do have to use the gimbal. And unless you have a follow focus, which is very difficult to use, I've tried it a couple times. I do not recommend. You got to have autofocus that nails, and that's another reason why I'm considering the A7 III. Now, the company that I'm doing contract basically weddings for, they don't care about 8-bit or 10-bit. They want it delivered in 1080. That's fine.
1080p 60 on top of that, I'm sure.
Yes, so they could slow it down here and there. But anyways, so for A7 III for me right now would suffice for that. It would suffice for my YouTube. It would even suffice for vlogging, because I'm confident that if I'm pointing it at me and I'm using a wide enough lens, it's going to nail my face. And I think a lot of times with, me and maybe some viewers and listeners out there, we get really stuck on not only the fear of missing out, but also the fact that we want the newest, or we think what we have is not good enough. And in my aspect right now, I'm thinking what I have is not good enough, and I know it is. And I just haven't used native lenses.
And I think that's the part, Neil, that has me hung up, right? Because I feel that you're really missing out on a fantastic camera, but you didn't really give it its just dues.
A shot, because I did have the X-T3 and I used the 18-55, and surprisingly, that little kit lens was nice.
Right.
And autofocus was good, and it's supposed to be better in this, which I do not doubt. But you know the beautiful thing about stuff, and it's not spending the money, even though you have it, I can always refund the person. But I would feel bad if I did that.
No, I get that. I get that, bro.
You know what I mean?
I get that.
Because that's, for someone that probably wants this so much more than me.
Yeah.
And then just to smack them in the face and say, "No, I feel bad for that." So I got to live with that now.
Yeah.
And it just happened today. So whenever this video goes up, whether that's today or tomorrow, it just happened today, Tuesday, the 15th. So
I get that. I get it 100%, right? But there's a but to that. You know, listen, man, you gotta do what's best for the business and what's best for what you're trying to do, right? In my opinion, like you just told me that you have a wedding coming up on Thursday, right?
Next Thursday, the 26th.
The 26th.
No, I have a wedding next Saturday, the 26th. I need to have whatever I'm using in my hand by the 26th.
Okay.
And like me and you discussed, maybe just rent something.
You could just rent something, or you could have possibly kept the X-T4 and just rent it, like, you know, a couple different Fuji lenses for it. You know what I mean? Just to kind of like try it out. But you know, I will say, what's the weather for you like right now out there?
It's pretty cool. It was really cool this morning. I haven't been out since around 9:30.
Okay.
But let's see. Right now it says in the good old crap hole of Anderson, South Carolina, 75 degrees.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool.
Similar to what it is in Chicago right now. Okay, so it's like pretty. Well, that's not cool for us. That's perfect weather. 70s is perfect weather for us. Like that's just we going outside to play basketball at 75. Sometimes 40, depending on what we feel like.
Right.
But like I was only asking it because of the overheating. So
right. And speaking of overheating, the R6 is on my radar, and the reason why it's on my radar is because it uses the same sensor as the 1DX Mark III, not 2, 3. It does have a new firmware update. There's been multiple tests that show with the new firmware update you get a lot of record time, and the actual 4K is better than the R5 because it's 5.5K downsampled to 4.
Right. Yeah. So here's the thing.
But no one has it in stock. I'm like, this is the worst time to sell it and not think this through. And I know better. I'm
gonna keep it a buck with you, Neil. All right. This is now.
Keep it real with me, bro. Keep it real. I may need to hear this, and other people may need to hear this as thinking as foolish as I am.
I don't care how much the R6 is going to cost. I don't care when it goes on sale, because that the crux of it all, as a wedding, as a person who's shot weddings, who's done multiple stuff, who's had an issue where not backing up something proved to be detrimental to my job, the fact that you cannot dual record and it has 2 card slots is a instant, like, that's one thing a camera has to have for me to buy into it. You have to be able to simultaneously record to both card slots. If you cannot do that, you're instantly out. I can't trust you.
Right. And you don't do external recorders. We had that conversation about the Ninja 5. It is very cumbersome. Last 2 weddings I used it on, and I actually took it off after about an hour and a half. And I was like, you're right, because we did this podcast before those weddings that I just recently had, and I was like, damn, with the NPF 970, this shit is heavy. I'm taking it off. I'm tired of it. Because I had it in a cage. I had the Fuji in a cage with a top handle. So that added weight. And then, of course, I had my monitor. And then, the Ninja 5, excuse me, and the battery on the back of it. And I was like, this is too much. Just for what?
Right.
And why am I recording ProRes HQ when all they want is 1080?
So now you've made your rig heavier. Right? Now your workflow, if you're sitting inside like a client, now you got to, like, pretty much at the most part, I'm pretty sure they're going to want you to, like, compress that, because the hard drives they send to you 9 times out of 10 can't even hold all of that, depending on how much you shot that day.
Exactly. Yeah, they send the hard drive. I have to put it on there, send it back to them. Blah, blah, blah.
I do weddings for people like that too, right? I'm partnering up with like 3 or 4 of them, so I know what you're talking about.
Right.
So for me, shooting an H.265 on a Fuji X-T4, making them files a lot smaller, so when I'm uploading I can walk away and be done in like 5-10 minutes.
Oh, man.
I do, honestly. So here's the thing: as much as I love my X-T4, it has to be paired with my GH5 when I do weddings. Has to
really?
Be. It has to be.
Why? Because of the coloring?
Nope.
Or the
time limits. Recording time limits
has to be paired.
So what I mean by paired,
but the Fuji has a record limit.
Right, the GH5
does not.
That's why I pair them together. So when I shoot weddings, my GH5 is my sniper angle, my X-T4 is my floater. Right. Gotcha. So I got a camera that's always recording at 422 10-bit, no matter what. I got a camera that's recording at all times. I know this camera's recording because the GH5 just never stops unless you tell it to. But on an X-T4, I do realize the limitations of that camera. So I usually have that around as my floater, getting those tight, intimate shots of people crying, or you know what I mean? Like when they're coming down the aisle, I want to shoot it in slow-mo, right? Now I'm coming down the aisle, shooting this all in slow-mo at 4K 60 10-bit as they're coming through with this grand entrance. Like, bro, wait till you see this wedding video I got coming out. Wait till you see this one. That wasn't shot with the Fuji X-T4. That was all with the GH5. People were probably not going to believe that. But yeah. So I love my GH5 and I love my X-T4, but I need both of them. I would love to sell my GH5, right? I would, because I would just love to have Fuji color science all the way around. But there's no way in hell I would sell my GH5 for a Fuji X-T3. Never.
Ah, gotcha. Really?
Never.
Because the X-T3, well, first of all, it doesn't have the IBIS that your GH5 has.
Nope. Or flip screen.
Or flip screen. And probably the dynamic range is not as good. And I tend to think, which after looking at your color grade, that F-Log wasn't as good as V-Log, but I'm reconsidering that whole thing now because you graded the hell out of that clip that I seen.
Thank you.
But you know, and that's the thing. See, it all goes back to what's usable for you.
Right.
Like your GH5 is still usable for you. And I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, it may be a whack idea, a whack decision and a whack idea maybe to go back to an A7 III, but I get the lens that I want. I get a fully capable camera that's still relevant. It's relevant for my workflow and functional. And next year, I can get an A7S III and have two great cameras that I can try to pretty much match up. Now I know the color science and the processing is a little bit different in the A7S III, but I'm pretty sure I could probably get fairly close working with it.
Brother, listen here. If I can match, if my boy and I, if we can match GH5 clips to A7 III clips, and those are two totally different color sciences, you could do it with your A7 III and an A7S III, like easily. You know what I mean? So I want to say this, you know, and this can go towards everybody who's the creator. You know, even though Neil he's asking for my opinion on like the camera and the whole A7 III thing, and yes, the A7 III is older, but at the end of the day, I'm not the one who's paying Neil to create the work. You know what I mean?
Right.
Neil is going to buy the camera that fits his workflow best. And that's what people have to understand. You know, like I know as creators, you know, we get the gas syndrome, right? Where it's just like, I gotta get this gear acquisition syndrome, right? The gas syndrome. So
I'm full of gas right now, bro.
You know what I mean?
That's crazy.
We all go through that because we feel like, to be the top of the game and make sure my footage looks like this. But I would argue that if I showed you two clips from 3 different cameras, which I'm working on a video like that right now. I have an X-T4, a GH5, and a Sony a6600 here. Then I'm going to record different stuff, and it's to see if people can tell the difference. And just the color science or the way it looks, the image. Because at the end of the day, 4K is 4K. So if you get a Sony a7 III that shoots in 4K, it's not going to look drastically worse than a Fuji X-T4 that shoots in 4K, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about how you color, it's about how you light it. There's so many other variables that goes along with the camera that the camera, in my opinion, in most cases, is the last thing you should be concerned about.
Right. Lighting is, like you said, lighting is very important. And it's not so much as the camera. A lot of people think, oh, I got to have this camera, like you're saying. I got to have that camera just to get the best footage possible. It's the person using the camera. It's lighting, it's composition, it's planning your shots, it's doing all that stuff. So that's why I'm not saying, I could save up right now, okay? Because like I was telling you, my budget, I could add a few more $100s to that if that gives you an idea of what my budget is, you guys that are listening, and get an A7S III. My problem is I won't have it in time for my events. So that's my issue right now.
I vote rent a camera.
Hang on.
Okay.
Keep that thought. Keep that thought. I got a hard stop on this.
Okay.
Because of the Fuji. Yeah. Hang on.
Yeah, bro. See, that's what I'm saying.
So, yeah, you're like rent it. And we just had a comical. I wish I would have recorded this because this is going to be a raw podcast. It's like no holds bar.
Yeah.
And I told Shawn, fuck this camera because I just had this hard stop because I'm not using a Ninja 5 anymore. I'm recording everything internally and I had to stop and start over. Yep. And that's A7 III. Again, yes, I'm going to be doing these podcasts, but these will probably be spaced out, right? The S1, no record limit. That's why I was considering that and on all the other features. R6, not available. So you say rent for now.
I say rent and buy an A7S III. Easily.
Yeah.
Because you know for a fact, after you buy an A7S III, at least I'm hoping this way, Neil. I know you say you're a camera whore, but I'm hoping this. there's not a single camera on this planet that you would need unless you invest into a cinema camera, right? Like an FX9 or something. But you would literally not need another camera after the A7S III. The A7S III is a camera, in my personal professional opinion, that can last at the very least. I mean, to be honest, until 720p becomes the new 4K. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So like,
yeah, and you're speaking strictly on a video aspect of things, right?
I'm speaking
because we're talking about filmmaking. Yeah.
From the video aspect side of it, you know, photography. I'm like, and let's not get it twisted. I don't do photography anymore, but I can still. I still bang in photography.
You still get down?
I still get busy
and here's the thing, too, about the A7S III. People, you know, it is only 12 megapixels, but once you put it online, Facebook, Instagram, whoever compresses it, 12 megapixels is more than enough. So if you casually wanted to do not professional photography, but street photography, landscape photography, unless you're blowing that shit way up, people still don't realize 12 megapixels is, on a good sensor, still good enough.
I would argue that everybody has seen those shot by an iPhone billboards everywhere. You telling me an iPhone can be blowing up, but your A7S III can't?
Right.
Come
and
on
that's
now.
and that you know, people, I understand it's not the ultimate hybrid camera. It's not. It's more video centric. But don't sleep on it for photos.
Right. Exactly.
I've seen a couple of videos where people have used it for photos and it actually did really well.
I've seen a few of them. Yes, I agree. It did phenomenal, in my opinion, from a photography standpoint. It does everything you need to do. If you raise the shadows, it raises the shadows. If you need to crop, you can't. Now, granted, you can't crop as much as you can on a 20-something megapixel sensor. No, but it's Instagram, dog.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's
Right,
Facebook.
right.
If you take a good picture on your phone, it's great. It's great for social media. But you think a 12 megapixel full frame big ass sensor won't be? Come on, dog.
Is it good enough?
Come on.
Yeah. And see, here's the thing: a lot of people don't understand. Well, some certain photographers will understand this. When I was doing photography not too long ago, I actually was saving my images 2048 pixel on the long side, 80% quality, so Facebook wouldn't compress them. And people don't understand.
I didn't even know you could do that.
When you do that, like in Lightroom or whatever, you can do it in whatever, Capture One, Lightroom, whatever you use. 2048 pixels, long edge, long side. Quality, 80%. Save for web, RGB color space. They will not compress it then. And if they do, it's very, very little compression. You know how sometimes on Facebook you can pinch to zoom into an image and it's fuzzy as hell? If you save it in that format, you can pinch to zoom and it's much, much clearer. What I'm getting at is if I have to downgrade the quality of my image just to upload it to Facebook to look good, then 12 megapixels is enough. Your phone is enough. And I hate to get on the A7S III, but we're talking cameras, and I just want to give a context and perspective to whatever you're thinking about, whether it's the A7S III, the Panasonic S1 or S5, the Canon R5 or R6, the Fuji X-T4, all very capable cameras. But like Shawn said, get the camera that's for you. And right now, because I don't know, I'm torn. It's either going to be the A7 III or the A7S III. My problem is I don't think I'm going to be able to get my hands on an A7S III anytime soon. It may be damn near November or December. But I would be okay with an A7 III because of the simple fact that I know it will work for what I'm doing. I can deal with the record limit. I can.
You know what I do? I'm gonna be real with you. I would buy that camera out at a Best Buy. I think you get I forgot what the return policy is. I would just keep it as long as I could, return that bitch, get my money back, right? If I don't have no jobs coming up within a week or two, okay, then I'll just sit on it. But let's just say if I got another job coming up, okay, I'll go buy it again, return that bitch again, and then just wait for the A7S III to drop at that point. To me,
well, you know the shitty thing though, I think that is an idea, and I have done that before. But I think some of these retailers are not accepting returns because of this COVID shit.
Hey, look here, bro. I love when I get retailers like that. Like, yo, I don't care if Bob, you're not accepting it, but Best Buy
You
is.
sold it to me.
Right.
Yeah, you sold it to me.
Right.
Like, it's your shit because I don't want it anymore, basically.
Right. I hate people that take their job too serious like that, bro. Like the ones that working at the cashiers.
That's crazy. Like, I trusted you to give it to me and not put COVID all over it, but you can't trust me to give it back to you if that's what you're thinking.
Right, yeah, okay.
Anyways, that's a whole totally different ball of wax. Renting is probably the way that I'm going to go, and that's crazy. That's so crazy because I had a fully capable camera. But that's what happens when you make ill decisions or whack decisions. And I just wanted to tell you guys, don't be a me. don't fuck around and be a me and have to do something like that.
So
I don't feel bad about it, to be honest, bro. I really don't. Because I'm looking towards the future. Like I was telling you earlier, I'm looking towards like a few months, like 2 to 3 months, when I can grab an A7S III and still have a great camera. And again, okay, let me just put this out there: Sony A7 III for $1,500. I get the lens that I want. I'm happy. You know what I'm saying? Now the Sony A7 III, yes, there are plenty of other cameras, like you said, that are better with better specs. The Sony A7 III at $2,000, which is brand new if you just went anywhere and bought it, is not for me, and it shouldn't probably be for a lot of you. At $2,000, there are better alternatives, hence the Fuji X-T4. S5 if you want to get that, whatever. But at $1,500, I think I'm getting a good camera at that cost, for value for dollar.
So there's a rule of thumb that I live by when it comes to buying gear, right? Because even though, Neil, I say that I'm getting an A7S III next year, it also depends on my clientele. So here's here is the rule of thumb that we discussed in the last podcast that I want to make sure I touch on this for them now. You buy the camera like that a job can afford, right? So for me, a job pays for an X-T4. A job does not pay for an A7S III for me right now. So I can't go out and justify me spending. Like, I've already did the math on this. With the Tamron lens that I want with the A7S III, if I was to order from Adorama, I'm looking at around $4,500 for an A7S III and a Tamron lens, a 28 to 75. My highest job right now, the highest that I've made on a job right now, my commercial price. How about this? My commercial price, which is my highest price right now, starts at $2,500. That's an X-T4 with a lens, not a Sony A7S III. So if you're doing work, right? Let's just say you just started now. You're like, yo, man, I want the best camera on the market. It's like, yeah, that's cool, but if you don't know how to use a $600 camera, you damn sure not going to learn how to use a $3,500 camera. So, you know, for those who are just starting out, right, buy the camera in which your job can pay for. So if you're just starting out and you're technically can't afford to buy a camera, you have one, your cell phone. Buy a little gimbal for your cell phone, which is about $70, and you rock out with that until jobs are paying you to buy another camera, right? So now you getting paid a couple $100, and now you could probably afford like an A6400 or something, right? Or a Canon SL3. Okay, you rocking out with that, then you move up. Like, don't just hop into the water with
because you think you can swim.
That's all I got to say on that.
There it is. And that's very true. That's very true. That's another big point of making a camera decision. You know, don't put the cart before the horse, man. Don't do stuff like that, because then you're going to regret it because you're broke and you have a camera with no work.
You feel what I'm saying, bro?
And you know what? To be real with you and the listeners, viewers, my work is slow. Like, my area is super slow. So, can I buy the A7S III? Sure. Do I want to be broke because of it? No. That's why I'm really strongly leaning towards an A7 III. Now, I hope, and you know, that's just, at this point, after making a whack decision, that's me trying to be sensible now, because the damage is done, sort of, kind of, not really. But I'm hoping by 2021, you know, first quarter, things start to get back to whatever our normal used to be. And people start rescheduling, you know, their weddings, and then hopefully by me building this portfolio with this contract work, I'll do a demo reel and, you know, show these highlight films and actually book some of my own higher paying jobs, justifying buying an A7S III.
I would argue.
So now that
Go ahead.
Now that I made that decision, I'm thinking more so sensibly instead of impulsively.
Yes, Neil.
You know?
I would even argue, you know, no slight to the person who just bought your Fuji X-T4. No slight to them. But if you decide like, no, I just can't do it, I would even recommend that you sell your Fringer with your Sigma 1835, get you a native glass, or keep the Fringer and just buy native glass anyway, right? And then have the other money invest into things that's going to make you money, right? A new camera is not going to make you more money than what you're getting right now.
Right.
Just keep it in a buck, right?
Right.
So if you, instead of you selling it, or if you decide to get an A7 III, so you buy the A7 III with the lens, right? Cool. I would say take that money and start either investing to like either marketing, or check out what other things that you need. Like how's your lighting equipment? How's your audio equipment? Do you have backup audio equipment? If something goes wrong, do you have a secondary camera to hold you over for like another shoot? Like things like that, where that's going to fundamentally change the way you do things, especially with the marketing piece, right? That's the main reason why I didn't buy an A7S III. I had an investor invest $10K into my business, and I'm sitting here thinking like, man, if I take this $10K and take half of that money, literally half of that money, and buy a new camera, what is that going to do for Brooks Media as a business? Absolutely shit. It's gonna
Nothing.
Nothing. But if I take this money, right, take this 10, out of this 10, I take 2 from it, I buy XT4, add 300 more bucks to it, get a lens, right? So now I have a total of $7,700 that I can use in marketing,
to grow your company,
digital ads, Google ad campaigns, website development, marketing agency reach outs, billboards, all this other shit that's going to actually bring me in revenue. You guys got to remember this. When you're buying new equipment, when you're starting out as a filmmaker, you have to understand that you are a business as well. You're not just a filmmaker, you're not just a videographer, you are a business. And to be a business, one thing that you have to do in every successful business, what they do is marketing. They spend money on marketing. Market yourself.
Right.
Cameras can't bring you more clients. Marketing can, though.
Boom. Exactly. Because you're a business first, you know, and under that business are your services. So if you don't have the businesses, you can't provide services.
Right?
You know,
what's
if you don't have those clients, you can't. Your gear is useless if you don't have clients.
Right. You sit here and think about all these people out here with the best gear, and I know we all know these people. Neil, I know people who has a shit ton more gear than me, but don't get the type of work that I get because you're focusing on the wrong thing. You're trying to be that person where when you step out to other filmmakers, the one that's not paying you, right? You care about how they look at you. Like, oh shit, he has a Canon R5 with the Ninja V, the new Ronin S2, the Mavic Pro 3, you know what I'm saying? Like, god damn, this guy has it all. And then you like, hey man, so when's the last time you had a client?
Well, he broke his hell and got a lot of credit card debt. And he'll sell the shit 6 months to a year. You will never hear from him again.
Right? But versus the person who's been rocking out with this Canon SL2 and that Zhiyun Crane V1 for the longest, right? They've been saving their money up, hustling.
Yeah. $300 here, $500 here, hustling. And then it makes it so much sweeter when they actually decide that, okay, I've hustled my ass off for a year, 2, 3, however. I'm buying a Red. I'm buying a C200. I'm buying whatever. And
they mastered their camera.
Yeah, at that point, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm getting right back into videography, filmmaking. And you know what? I knocked myself down in a totem pole. And I don't, again, A7 III is not a bad camera. It will work right now for what I needed to do. But it's time that I humble myself a little bit and say, you have to master what you're doing first before you can expect your wallet to give it up.
Brother.
You have to think sensibly.
Brother, it took me a while to leave my GH5. And that's mainly because I talked to my boy a lot. He like, well, Shawn, have you mastered everything in your GH5? So this is why I didn't buy another camera for a while. Because I'm like, yo, there's still like a lot of stuff about the camera that I currently own that I don't like. There's people out there right now, Neil, who does not know how to meet the maximum output of their dynamic range. right? They don't know the correct settings for it or anything like that. But they think when they buy another camera, it's going to instantly just give them the dynamic. Like, again, this is all stuff that people are under the false assumption of because of, you know, for lack of a better word, what the shit that YouTubers put out, right? We make it seem like when we buy new cameras, shit just all like, yo,
Yeah, clicks. No.
Truth is, you have to master your shit. And if you don't,
Right.
so whatever camera you buy, if you don't take the time out to learn it, it's gonna do the same shit that you was doing with the other camera. You're just gonna be filming shit and just filming shit just to film it. So now instead of you
in a more expensive camera,
expensive camera, right? So now
and then you're gonna feel like a dumbass. You're like, this camera sucks. It's not doing this because you don't know what you're doing with the camera.
you don't know
Again,
what you're doing
it's
with the
just a
camera,
tool.
right? And then on top of that, what type of work are you doing where you think you need 4K 120, right? If you are, for the most of your clientele, if you're sitting down and you're doing like a lot of like interviews and documentary work, the only thing that you truly need is good 4K 24.
Yep. You don't need all that other shit. You don't need 12-bit RAW.
For what?
You don't need, for what? You know? And, you know, certain specs, yes, they do have their advantages.
Yes,
If you want to shoot
agreed.
4K ProRes HQ and downsample it to 1080.
Of course.
Yeah, that's logical and that's feasible and reasonable. You don't need 6K. Sorry. You don't need 8K. You don't. And for you to tell yourself that because it's new and it's fancy and it's shiny, chances are your computer can't handle that shit. You won't know how to grade it.
Neil.
Stop always listening to people saying this shit is the bee's knees because they're probably not even doing it themselves. They're probably getting someone else to do it. And if they are, kudos to them. But unless you know how to do it, don't take on that project. Don't jump on a 300-pound gorilla when your ass is 100 pounds.
Expecting for you to be out here and just come swinging on this motherfucker like, yo, I got it. Stop it. That's not gonna happen.
Yeah, that's not the move. That's not the move.
You have to learn your shit first before you start investing to other shit. Like, I knew getting that Fuji X-T4, like, I knew there was gonna be some setbacks. Not as many as I got, but I knew it was gonna be some. You know what I mean?
Right.
But for what I charge and for the work I do now, it's improved. Neil, I shit you not. I shit you not, yo. I'm able to go into jobs now, set the camera up, lock the balance off, or whatever the case I got to do. Well, lock the white balance off, lock the ISO in, and I'm good to go. Like, I've never had a camera where the autofocus is so tack on for me. I don't have to. Neil, I again, when you watch the video, you will see for yourself.
Damn.
But this 16, listen, y'all, if you get a any Fuji camera, the 16 to 55, and I think it's on record as saying like it's probably their best autofocus lens. Like, I'm talking about when the client's talking, if he moves and he rub his eye, the eye auto tracking switches over to the other eye. I'm like, oh, come on now, Fuji.
Come on now.
You gonna do me like you that nasty?
Come on now.
Oh my God. So
I mean, I've seen the autofocus test, and like you said, Philip Bloom, right? That's his name. It looks good, and oh man, you got me kicking myself in the ass for real. I'm like,
if you and I would have talked about it a little bit more, you're right. You know what I mean? I would have really tried to do my best to persuade you.
Literally, I sold this 30 minutes before we hopped on this podcast.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real with you, dog. I wouldn't sell that bitch, bro. I'm sorry. I had like at the very least, if you want to feel good about it, I say, listen, bro, just for wasting your time, I'll throw in like $50 or something just to say like my apologies. But for the setup that you have, man, like there's nothing that you can't do with that camera. And like you already have a lens for it, right? You just got to tweak it. Like go look at some of Zach Mayfield's videos. I don't know if you ever heard of him or not, but
yeah, I've seen his. He rocks it.
Yeah, he rocks the same as that combo, and his shit looks amazing. Like, even with the autofocus. So, I personally would keep the camera that I have because technically you will be downgrading if you go to 8-bit because, you know, if you do any type of grading at all, 8-bit Sony footage, I mean, it's gradable. But there are advantages to 10-bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, even coming from my GH5, I shot a movie. I kid you not, Neil, I had a choice to shoot a movie, a short film, either with my GH5 or the A7 III. I chose my GH5 because of 10-bit. Because if there's anything...
I would have too, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So, you know...
Or I can get an S1 and just manually pull that focus.
Neil, I'm almost
I know how you,
begging you. Like,
you wanna hang up on the call, don't you? You're like, man, I can't deal with you in the S1.
Listen, my boy, shout out to my boy Wallace. He inboxes me often and ask me about cameras too. And the S1 came up. I said, bro, listen, I'm a Panasonic. Well, at least I used to be a Panasonic fanboy until they got quiet. Quiet as fuck what was going on in the world versus other camera manufacturers like Sony and Fuji. That's kind of like another reason I chose Fuji too, because of their voice. Like they didn't just sit down and just didn't say shit. But they spoke up.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that earned a lot of points in my book. But in regards to the S1, man, like it's a great, if you are going to do manual focus 100% of the time, then fine. Because the S1's autofocus is technically worse than the GH5s. Didn't know if you knew that or not. So I'm gonna be real with you, dude. Coming from okay autofocus to usable autofocus, I can't go back. Like I refuse to. I refuse to go to anything less than phase detect autofocus. I would never buy into a system with contrast-based detection ever again. And Panasonic refuses to drop that fucking ball. And I don't get why.
Even with the S5, they got the same. I mean, literally, they could have the perfect cameras.
Yo!
If they would just fix the auto fucking focus.
Neil, if the GH5 had phase detect, I would have never looked at the XT4. No bullshit. No bullshit.
Yeah.
If the GH5 had phase detect, I would still have this camera, and this would be my A cam, and I'd be rocking out with it. Even if they give me first generation phase detect, I'm fine with that. But contrast based is not a autofocus system that's good enough for run and gun filmmaking. It's just not.
Right. No. Yeah.
Especially for gimbal work.
I agree. Yeah, because it's going to be hard as hell to focus on a gimbal. Even if you have a follow focus, I mean, you're holding some camera with some weight, you're holding a gimbal with some weight. With one hand, you got to hold it, and the other hand, you got to focus and look, and you're trying to catch the shot. I agree. Now, handheld is a different story.
It's a different story, right? Because you're here.
Right. You're here.
It's easy.
Yeah. So because to me, when I'm running and gunning and like at a wedding and I'm filming the couple or the groomsmen or the bridesmaids, I'm handheld. There's no need to be on the gimbal for that. Panning shots, push-in shots, pull-out shots, gimbal. But that way I know I'm in control. I know everybody's in focus. I know I got the shot composed correctly.
You're good to go.
If it's in my hand. Yeah. The gimbal may do some weird shit on you like this all of a sudden, and boom, you're
Which
done.
it has happened.
You missed that shot. Yeah, exactly. I had a Ronin that did that to me, and I was like, "What the hell?"
Yeah.
And I totally missed a shot.
Yeah.
And it was a bad thing to miss. So, having said that, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm probably gonna rent something. To be honest with you.
Again,
I just don't even know what I'm gonna rent though.
Hey, Neil, if it's up to me,
you give him a refund.
I get do the refund.
Hey, shout out to the guy that's looking at this video, or he may look at this video if I post it today or tomorrow. Bro, I'm not gonna do you dirty like that. I promise. I'm gonna give you the camera because you bought it. Yeah, you're a good guy. You bought it. You did what you said you was gonna do. Now I have to do what I said I was gonna do, and I have to knock myself down a peg. I won't say I made a whack decision. I made an impulse decision because I would still end up getting a good camera.
Which we all do as filmmakers, right, Neil? Like, I remember we and I discussed this before. I bought the Ninja V on an impulse.
Yeah. And you hated it, and now you don't use it. But at least you had it to sell. And honestly, as I used it more and more outside of the space here, this little studio space I have, I started to hate it too because it was no other reason besides it was very cumbersome to carry around, and it was just a lot. And again, run and gun and heavy and cumbersome don't go together.
Nope.
So, that's what we just wanted to come on today, guys, and talk about is cameras, fear of missing out, making whack decisions. Whatever you decide to do, essentially, like me and Shawn has said, do what's best for you.
Right.
Do what's best for your workflow. Think about not just now, but several months later. And whatever camera you get, master that camera. Make it work for you. Learn it like the back of your hand. And I'm at fault for that. I did not give the XT4 a chance. And I may come back to it later because Shawn is just like, he's telling me all this good shit. And, I should have tried it. And I know there's a lot of people out there like me, but just buckle down and enjoy the ride and take it for a ride, take it for a spin before you decide that you're going to give up on it. And I'm not saying I gave up on Fuji, but at the same time, I didn't give it a fair chance. So anything you want to leave with, brother? We got about 3 minutes before this Fuji as at its limit for the second time.
No, other than that, man, again, thanks for having me, Neil. And for those who are interested in learning more about the Fuji X-T4 experience, at least from my experience, and Neil,
give me your channel.
I definitely recommend you check that out. So again, my channel is Shawn Brooks, ShawnBrooks, or you could just Google search Brooks Media with 2 S's. My SEO is that good, you will find me.
Damn, bro, look at him. Now, Shawn Brooks is on YouTube, right? That's the name on YouTube?
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. And you want to plug your website, even though you said that Google was fired?
Again, that's going to be Brooks Media with 2 S's, brooksmedia.com.
Okay.
But I promise you, if you type in Brooks Media with 2 S's, BROOKSS Media, all one word, everything about me you will find. That's my Twitter, my IG, my Facebook, my YouTube, my website, my professional work, all of that under that name.
All the marketing dollars that you said about earlier. I feel you.
Come on now.
Man, I need your game plan. I need your strategy sheet now. We're going to talk after this. But thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Small Talk, Bigger Ideas. We hope you enjoyed it. And more episodes are to come. Thank you so much for joining us. And everyone, keep rocking and create something awesome. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.